Thanks for joining me on the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. I'm Alice Stockton-Rossini. Mark Hodges managed a national home building business for 40 years. Now he's moved on to more meaningful pursuits, including writing a book about his brother entitled Lessons from Philip, The Joys and Sorrows of Growing Up with a Disabled Brother. Tell us about some of the other things you're doing, Mark.
Launched a multi-ministry nonprofit in the city of Camden, New Jersey, poor, impoverished Camden, but I was involved in a very large ministry, which included a child development center and an elementary school and a home building company, which I helped to found, and a youth outreach program, homeless facility, all these things. And for a few years, I oversaw the growth and development of that ministry. And then missed home building a lot, and then set up a one-man consultancy. And for the last 7 or 8 years, I've been consulting with home builders around the country, smaller home builders, helping them to plan for growth and whatnot. But I stopped doing that about a year ago, and I'm now just loving life and doing everything I want to do every single day, which is just a fabulous gift.
So one of the things you wanted to do was write about your brother.
I've been writing that in my head for 10 years at least, Alice, and thinking about how I would tell the story of growing up with Philip in a way that wasn't self-aggrandizing, but that was just an authentic way to talk about what it meant and how it felt to grow up with a disabled brother. And I finally sat down at the computer about probably 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, and writing chapter by chapter, inch by inch, a very, very emotional process that exhausted me emotionally, but I could write a chapter and then take a month off and sit back and think about the next one and write some more. And so it took me a long time, but I finally, about 6 or 8 months ago, sat up and looked at my computer and said, I think I'm finished. I forget who it was that said it. Might have been James Joyce or somebody who said, you never actually finish writing a book, you simply stop. Because you can never really make it perfect, but you can make it as well as you can. And so I've been writing it for a long time, but found Paige and they found me, and it's been a tremendous journey so far.
Let's see. So Philip, your brother, was the 7th of 8 children.
Correct. I'm the elder, the 3rd of 8. So there's 6 boys and 2 girls, and I'm the 3rd of the 8. Philip was 7th of 8, and then my youngest brother Luke came after Philip.
So what were some of the moments that stuck with you that you talk about in the book?
Most importantly to me in writing the book was describing the extraordinary devotion of my parents, largely my mother, and what she did for Philip and for us. She described Philip as a gift, and she said that God gave us Philip because he knew that we would take care of him and give him his best possible life, whatever that might mean. And, that her courage and her devotion and her extraordinary love for Philip was so deeply meaningful to me as a young boy and as a young adult, recognizing that devotion to Philip was just an extraordinary thing that shaped me profoundly, really. And one of the chapters in the book that we love to tell the stories of, our favorite stories about Philip, were that my mother said we were to include him in everything, and no matter what, his frailties, and they are profound. He's never spoken a word. His intellectual deficits are hard to measure, but she said include him in everything, and so we did. We had him. We threw him into the swimming pool. We had him on go-karts and water skis even, and we took him everywhere, to the movies, to the restaurants. Wherever we went, Philip was with us. And we included him in our family activities in a way that made him feel part of the family, made him feel accepted and loved for who he was. And that shaped my sense of compassion. My gratefulness is probably one of the most profound aspects of my life that I've been lucky to be able to sense gratefulness and appreciate my good health and my good fortune and all the great things that have happened to me throughout my life. I'm grateful for them. I take very little for granted, and that's been because of Philip. And so I wrote the book to families who are perhaps struggling, or perhaps fearful, or angry, or terrified of the prospect of having a disabled family member. You never expect it, you never plan for it, and when it happens to families, it can be immensely jarring, as it was for my parents. Although they never showed that to us, they hid those feelings from us, their dismay, their fear, their misgivings. And so I wrote the book to families to say, you can find joy, and there's joy to be found in the life of a disabled family member if you look for it and find it. Giving them their best possible life is now your job, and so do that job and take it on with grace and as much compassion and love as you can, because that's the way you can find joy in the life of that person.
What a beautiful story. And I think we've all seen instances of families that struggle. And when you say, the title of your book is The Joys and Sorrows of Growing Up with a Disabled Brother, what would you say was sorrowful for you?
Oh, many things. Well, just wishing for Philip that because he was such a happy boy, he was happy all the time. And I tried to understand, as I was writing the book, actually, how he could be so joyful with his life the way it was, because it's a tragic story. He was robbed of a whole life of growing up, going to school, playing baseball, getting married, having children, getting a career. He was robbed of all of that, and that's immensely sorrowful. His life was tragic in that way. But I tried to figure out why he was so happy all the time, and I finally realized. I wrote the last chapter of the book, Finding the Joy, when I went to visit him, and I just was there last weekend visiting him where he lives in Kentucky. And while I was finishing up the book, I decided to add photographs to it of just a last-minute sort of thought process. Maybe some pictures of Philip would help to weave the story together. And so I went to his room, which is wall-to-wall pictures of he and his family and him growing up, and I stole about 15 of them, rephotographed them, and every one of those young pictures of him, he was smiling and happy, beaming, not just happy, gloriously happy, and I tried to understand why, and I was able to, and I think. And he was joyful all the time because he was surrounded by people who loved him and took care of him and did everything for him. And so for him, life was, his whole life was about being cared for by people who loved him. And that made him joyful. And so that was all the joy, but the sorrow is what he was robbed of. And, I wrote in the book, Alice, that, 2 out of 1,000 children in the United States are afflicted with cerebral palsy. 2 out of 1,000. So the odds are very good that you will never have that affliction, that injury. But for us, because he was the 7th of 8, it felt like the odds were 1 in 8. And so I felt like it felt like luck that I had escaped that affliction. Not that it felt more like, oh my gosh, it happened to my brother and it didn't happen to me. And there was relief, but there was also guilt. I felt like I was so lucky to have escaped that fate. And that was wonderful in its own way, but it was sad in another. It caused sorrow because I was sorrowful for Philip, even though he was happy. I felt sorry. And that sorrow reflected itself in how I lived my life. I was going to do my very, very best at whatever task I had to undertake because I could. My father would say, Mark, you're capable. You're very, very smart. You're very capable. You have all the things you need to do to have a successful and happy life. And you have a responsibility to do those things the best that you can do them. Whatever chore it is that you're doing, whatever job it is that you're doing, do your very best because you can. And I learned that through Philip because he couldn't feed himself. And I could do anything. So if I was complaining about mowing the lawn, I'd get the look that said, Philip would love to mow the lawn. So get on with it. And that shaped my life in very important ways. And I wanted to share that with the siblings of disabled kids. That, you have a responsibility to not only roll up your sleeves and help and pitch in and help care for your disabled sibling, but you have a responsibility to do your very best with the gift you've been given, which is health.
Now you're involved in all of these groups in helping people. Are you able to get your book out there through those groups or through some of the work that you do?
Well, it's funny that you ask that. I had a very long phone conversation with the strategic and operational VP of United Cerebral Palsy internationally. And the book has captivated them happily, and they are now about to actively promote it to all their 56 affiliates across the United States and Canada and help to get the word out about the book. They are putting it in their newsletter. They're going to do a big interview with me, and they share now my goal, which I share with them. What my hope is that the book will find its way into the hands of as many families as it can. In fact, I'm going to donate virtually all of the proceeds to the book to United Cerebral Palsy and to the Wendell Foster Center where my brother Philip lives. Because I'm not doing this to make money. I'm doing this to help families. That's why I wrote the book. And so United Cerebral Palsy is motivated because they love the book and they want to help families too, but because it will help them to raise money to do more for them. And so, yes, I use those gifts that I've been given. I have a social media director who's been that in a career. I have a publicist who's been a publicist his whole life, and they've read my book, and they're friends of mine, and they're volunteering their services to help me promote the book. And now United Cerebral Palsy is going to help as well. And so I've got all these people wanting to help me to promote this book and get it out there, and I'm really, really lucky that way, too. So,
all right, you are Mark Hodges, author of Lessons from Philip, The Joys and Sorrows of Growing Up with a Disabled Brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alice. Have a great day yourself.
Elizabeth R. Barbiere has self-published a number of books, but decided to go with Fulton for her latest, entitled What Lies in the Truth, a fictional story about a reality TV star who wound up with 2 life sentences for rape. Now, Elizabeth, this is based on a true story about a TV personality, I guess you could say you became fascinated with.
Well, I basically wanted for people to know the lives and the backgrounds of people, famous people, even if their lives haven't been picture perfect. This man was incarcerated. He was actually charged with 2 counts of aggravated rape, and he got actually 2 life sentences plus 40 years.
And why is this so interesting to you?
He basically was successful. He came from a very kind of impoverished background, rural background, but he basically had a claim to fame, and he opened up a gun shop. He manufactured his own guns, and that became kind of a hobby to a career. And then he had his own business, and he was approached by reality TV producer because the business was so successful. I corresponded with him for about 2 years in prison. He's just basically very innovative and very persevering, and also he enjoyed what he was doing. He was constructing AK-47s.
And the real life person on which your story is based, you've been in contact with.
I've corresponded with him by phone, mostly by phone and email, yes.
Why?
Oh, okay. I'm interested in this person and everything because I feel that people, have checkered pasts, and I just wanted to hear his side of it. And besides, he had an intriguing story.
So part of his story is the way he was raised.
He was raised from a very poor and unstable family. His father left when he was still a child, and they lived out of the country for a while there. They didn't even have, I don't even know, I think they had electricity, but they didn't have running water, and they didn't have, central heating or anything. They had like a wood furnace, that type of thing.
Okay. And do you think that that led to his downfall? I mean, you write in your synopsis, by the time David is 18, he gets his GED, he joins the Marines.
Yes.
He doesn't stay in the military. He's discharged, not dishonorably. He gets married 3 times. He has 2 daughters by his first wife. I mean, you really get into the details here.
Yeah, I do.
And he has a 3rd child who's illegitimate, and he doesn't know about her. Through all of this, manages to have a gun shop so successful that it catches the eye of a reality TV show, and then he ends up becoming a star of this reality TV show. But what's his downfall?
First of all, one of the things, there's a myth going out there that just because, people that have, star in TV shows, they end up being millionaires. What had happened was he got into a lot of squabbles with other people there. They said he was embezzling money. They got into a lot of basically office politics. And then, it just because of that and everything, the profits came, were very, very low. And then when he finally went to prison, he got really nothing. It could have been successful, but it just didn't work out that way. And it's sort of like, you hear about these things in, TV shows or whatever that are supposed to, they catch people's eye and they're supposed to be automatically successful, but it wasn't.
And you say it was an astronomical success, but then scandal broke out about his transgressions concerning 2 young girls.
Yes. It was reported by a witness and everything that he was molesting his 3rd daughter, the illegitimate daughter, the illegitimate child, and she was 12 years old. One of his coworkers stopped by to, deliver something, and she peeked in the door, and she saw him doing very, very questionable acts with the daughter, something about standing over him, and he had a basket full of laundry, and I don't think she saw very well, but she saw enough that she saw that he was molesting the child. Scandal broke out. Of course, it ruined the reputation of the program, and then eventually he was charged.
How did you come to feel so much for this person?
Because first of all, I told him from the get-go that I would tell his story and I would be fair. I'll tell both sides of it. His side, but that I would look into his background on the internet and I would show the other side. And that's what I said. By the way, that's what, I don't know if you get this, but it's what lies in the truth. It's a play on words, okay? I'm going to tell both sides, okay?
All right, so if you don't watch reality TV, how did you come to know about this guy and his story?
Oh, I checked it out on the internet, and I saw his story, and I actually wrote to him.
What made you want to write to him?
Well, I was just looking for somebody, that had an interesting story, and that was on the inside, that was, that wanted to tell their story.
Okay, so you start corresponding with him, and your book, What Lies in the Truth, you do tell both sides of the story.
Yes, I do.
But it seems to me that you kind of like this guy and you feel bad for him.
Well, yes, I do. Yes, I do, because 2 life sentences and it was aggravated rape. 2 life sentences is 40 years is too much, even if he were guilty. And the other thing about it is when you correspond with anybody for 2 years, you do develop a bond. Whether you should or not, you do.
Has he read your book?
Well, that's another thing. He's actually told some people that he knows on the outside, and they have bought the book. But he said something to the effect that they're very, very restricted from incoming mail, incoming email. Everything is scrutinized. So I don't know if he's actually gotten a copy of the book yet, because I was going to send it to him, and he said he can't do that because of their policies. And I don't think he has read the book, no, but he knows other people who have.
Have you been out talking about your book?
Somewhat, yeah. I've done another radio interview, and I did a video chat.
Okay. And what's the most common question you get?
So I guess basically what you asked me, why would you want to, write about somebody like that, and somebody on the inside? I want the readers to draw their own conclusion that everything was said on his side and the other side. Oh, and by the way, I did get like 1,000-page, there was thumb drive transcript, and I took the bits and parts out of that too.
But you took the transcripts and you weaved it into your fictional story.
Yes, I did. Parts of it.
All right.
Parts of it. But I call it the exposition channel in the book. I don't use any real names.
I mean, it seems to be you believe he did what he did, but you think the sentence was too harsh.
Yes, I do, because he says murderers have gotten less sentences, and I believe that.
Why do you think he was sentenced so harshly then?
Well, there could be a number of reasons. One is that he was kind of high profile, and maybe his being in the public eye at that point did him more harm than good. The other reason is because he fought it. He never confessed. Because had he confessed, he could have gotten a lighter sentence.
All right. Elizabeth R. Barbiere, author of What Lies in the Truth. Thanks so much for talking with me.
Oh, you're welcome. Glad to do it.
A retired lawyer, George S. Karavitis, has filed his share of legal briefs, but he's always been captivated by science fiction. And when he found the opportunity to try his hand at it, Gangs of Earth came to life. Tell us more, George.
I had the story that this book is based on floating around in my head for a number of years. And my son, who's a writer, also told me about a thing called NaNoWriMo. Have you ever heard of that?
No. What is it?
It's called National Novel Writing Month.
Okay.
And it's a contest. If you have to write at least 50,000 words of a novel in 30 days. And if you do that, they give you a little certificate that said you won the contest. And my son challenged me to do it. And I was looking at what story do I have the most ideas on, and it was this one. And I spent the 30 days writing to get at least 50,000 words. And when I was done, I discovered at the end of the 30 days, I actually had 80,000 words and a good start on the novel. So I decided that I would put some time into finishing the thing, which I did. And that's how it came to be.
So Jasmine Prine is unjustly convicted of voluntary manslaughter.
Yes. I have some familiarity in my legal practice with juvenile law. And I had encountered circumstances where, young people can make mistakes and get into trouble. So the idea came to me about a young girl that's in trouble with the authorities, and it's unjust. It's the circumstances I set up were that it's an unjust conviction, but it happened under circumstances where the authorities and the system, and this is a dystopian future, also about 70, 80 years in the future from today, close to the end of the century, in a country called the Reformed United States of America, because there's been a constitutional change in the way the country is organized. So I wanted a kind of a dystopia where the world has changed and she is caught up in some problems that are going on.
Well, it sounds like she's being used because in your synopsis, she's being transported to an isolated juvenile detention facility where she'll face 2 years of quote unquote rehab, at the end of which she'll be quote unquote evaluated. I mean, are they brainwashing her? What's going on?
Well, that in the story, that's left. It takes a while to figure it out. When they get to the camp, and she's on the boat with 5 other kids who are in the same boat. When they get to this isolated camp, they are actually taken into a processing center with 2 counselors who start setting them up, and they have a story they tell them that says, well, we're having an epidemic here in the camp, and so we don't want you to get infected. We don't know. They won't let us send you back for later processing. So what we're going to do is we're going to take you to a cabin we use for staff retreats. It's a little hike away from the camp, but we're going to stay there until we can bring you back into the facility. And my character Jasmine is a bit of she's been mistreated by the system, so she's suspicious, and everything looks to her strange. Why would they take them hiking through the woods to this cabin in the woods? And the setup is that it's an illegal proposal. They actually, at this time, Jasmine comes to the conclusion that they are actually have other plans in mind for young people. There is a market in what they call body jacking. That is, wealthy people who need new body parts are willing to pay for young body parts, and there is a criminal gang that's willing to abduct people for that purpose. And what's a better way to do that than somebody that's incarcerated in a facility where there's actually no record that they actually went there.
That sounds like it could really happen.
Yes.
Because, I mean, look at the black market for livers. People need kidneys.
Oh, yes. There. Some of this goes on today, but there have been people that have, had their liver removed in Mexico, and they wake up from some procedure and discover they don't have a liver anymore. So yeah, she tumbles to the fact that this is going on and engineers an escape. So then the story evolves from there. She convinces her fellow inmates that they should that they can't hang around. She's not going to hang around, the circumstances are that they flee and are being pursued. The finalization of the story involves a lot of odd events. The body jackers come to the cabin with an air car to fly them out. But when Jazz figures out what's going on, she engineers an escape. The escape leads them off into further issues. So that's the story goes on from there.
Wow. Where are you talking about this book?
Well, I've been thinking about going to some bookstores and seeing if they'd be willing to put the book on their shelves and see if it sells. Actually, there's a number of independent bookstores. The big bookstores in this area there's only one left around here.
So go to the independent bookstores. You're a local author. Anyway, you are George S. Karavitis,
right?
Author of Gangs of Earth. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for the call. I appreciate it.
A director at a preschool in Connecticut, Donald Austin connects with children every day. And now he's opened another door with his book, The Moon is Angry. Did your students inspire you, Donald?
Actually, the inspiration came from just laying in bed one morning. I'm always up at like 3 a.m. And there was a screensaver of the moon on my TV. And I looked up, and I guess coming out of a sleep, I thought the moon had a very disturbed look on its face, downright angry look on its face. And I'm like, what could the moon be so angry at? That sparked this whole, idea. Then I came up with perhaps it's environmental, with humans, just looking at humans and our actions, little actions that we could not have done, but are doing and continue to do that perhaps is harming the earth. And, the moon is quite angry about that.
So this was just kind of out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere. But I've always wanted to write a book. And actually, my boss and personal friend, her family wrote a book during COVID. And, even though I've always wanted to write a book, because this isn't what you really do and are focused on, you don't know the process. And, seeing them write the book, seeing her family write the book, gave me the idea, you know what, I too can do that. Why not me? And then I sought out a publisher. And after this idea kicked in, I sought out a publisher. And here we are.
And you had never written anything before?
Nothing published. I've always had a wild imagination that I think because my mom used to, read books to me as a kid and buy a lot of books for me as a kid. And my grandmother was a very, very vivid storyteller. She was a great actress in terms of acting out the stories, mimicking voices, particularly ghost stories. And growing up in Jamaica, hearing ghost stories, I was terrified of ghosts. And, she knew this, and it's a part of the nurturing where she would sit us down and tell us stories at night while we were having supper, and it was a great time. Great time.
So what are some of the things that the moon is very concerned about? What is it that the moon sees happening?
All right. So the moon, first of all, looks down and says, Earth was once really, really quiet, calm. Then humans started to move into areas where other animals lived. So they would clear out the land. It would force animals away from their homes, destroy their source of food, destroy their homes. It would be noisy, it would be loud. They would burn the forests down, there would deforestation. And most importantly, pollution, polluting rivers, polluting waterways, polluting the oceans. And the moon is saying, you know what? These are simple things that you could stop doing right away and make the earth heal. Is there any reason to dump garbage in the same beach that you'd love to go swimming in? So the moon looks at that and says, hey, humans, we can certainly do better. You can certainly do better. And these are little things. And, the 3 R's, reduce consumption, reuse things, and then recycle. These are 3 things that we focus on in the book as well. And I could tell you, teaching kids, even before my book about, on Earth Day and in terms of our curriculum, just practicing the 3 R's. Kids learn that stuff from 2.5, 3 years old that, hey, the garbage goes in the garbage can. We don't have to toss it on the floor. We don't have to toss it on the street. We don't have to litter. And it seems as though adults, humans, are the biggest, cause of littering the oceans. And we can do better.
We can definitely do better. And your book gives us suggestions: reduce, reuse, recycle.
Yes.
How do you leave us at the end of the book?
I leave by saying, listen, it's not too late. It's definitely not too late. And the moon basically has a line that it says, I yearn for the day when humans could stop their mistakes, and just practicing reduce, reuse, and recycling, and at one line in the book says, now you're not satisfied with what you're doing to Earth, but you're setting your sights on me. You want to come up and build a colony on me, and you're going to bring those same bad practices here. And if you're coming here to do that, basically you're not welcome. However, we can go back and change course. And that's why we start with the young children, because it will take this next generation that's coming up that's going to, either continue the bad practices or make a change. And we're hoping that by introducing these concepts of, reduce, reuse, recycle, that this next generation and generations to come can start to heal the earth and make the moon smile once again.
Are you going to keep writing?
I am. I actually have written probably about 14 or 15 books, and I've done a readaptation of a play, and I've also written a few poems and a couple of kids' songs.
Jeez.
But this is the only thing that I've published thus far.
Okay, but will we have any more observations from the moon?
Maybe not necessarily the moon's perspective, but absolutely there are more observations to come.
Does it help with the kind of work that you do? Are you able to read your book to these children?
Yes. In fact, even before I wrote the book, we always had themes around Earth Day. And, what really drove me to really focus on this age group, and the book is actually anywhere from preschool up to 12 years old. And everyone can actually get something from the book, because whether you're an adult or a child, an adult could certainly read from the book and then talk to a young person, a child, about the book. So the book is for everyone. But working this into the curriculum, this was something that we actually have had in the curriculum. And, tailoring it to this age group, just based on my experience here at the school, I've seen children learn about mummification and photosynthesis. And I'm like, wow, these children aren't too young to grasp the concept of this stuff. So this isn't baby talk. It's really, really helping to spark their curiosity, ask questions, and say, hey, Mom, Dad, that's not nice. Throw the garbage in the garbage can. Turn your car off. We don't want to breathe in the toxic fumes from your car. These are concepts that the children are actually able to understand and talk to their parents and families about. It's each child, and I have read the book to my entire school, as a matter of fact. And at the end of the book reading, I say, give me a pinky promise. And the promise is we all can do better to save the earth. So I have them say, I can save the earth. And they move away with that as the last thing that they learn. I can save the earth. That's what we really want to do. And little things. It doesn't have to be a monumental thing. Just not using as much as we do. Not littering the oceans. And I ask them, I have 2 bottles of water, one clean and one dirty. And I'm like, listen, there are certain basic elements that we need to sustain life on Earth. That's air we breathe, the water we drink, and food. And I say to them, would you rather drink a clean bottle of water or a dirty bottle of water? And that's a concept that they all understand. Clean water. And would you like to breathe in clean air, or do you breathe in air that makes you cough? And they say, oh, I want clean air. So it's a very, very simple concept, and it's just the way it's taught. And I'm fortunate to be around great educators who understand the concept. And even before I wrote this book, we're doing this work. So, we are a partnership with the Maritime Aquarium, where they actually go on field trips. They see the animals that our actions affect. If the oceans are dirty, it kills the fish. And it's a simple concept. Very, very simple concept to understand.
All right. You are Donald Austin, author of The Moon is Angry. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my book, share my experience. The journey has been surreal. To just I actually am fortunate to be able to actually hold a concept that went from a thought in my head to something tangible, a book. I'm literally holding a dream in my hand.
Oh, Donald, that's so nice to hear. Thanks again. Elaine Bradbury is an actress, singer, and dancer living right outside of New York City, and now she adds author to her resume with her book, Even the Least of These. Now, you've written before, correct?
Well, I wrote screenplays, and Even the Least of These actually was a screenplay, and then because it's so hard to sell screenplays, I turned it into a novella.
Oh. What inspired this? The book takes place in the 1930s in the Deep South.
Yes. My mother's sister was Elizabeth, and when I was younger, I was not nice to her. And so I think making her the heroine of my novella, I'm trying to say I'm sorry to her. And then the story just kind of evolved from actually it's what was going on back then is going on now in our country, with the prejudice and the division and the very born again Christian.
So you have a born again preacher, Charles. You have a born again deacon named Mobley. He feels God's power to heal. Then there's two young African American men,
Woodrow and Zeke are two African American men that are gay, and they've been fighting their sexuality for their whole lives.
And there's this woman, Lizbeth, in her 50s, who was born retarded. How do they know her?
Because the preacher tries to rape her.
Oh.
And so she escapes, but in escaping, she knocks over a candle and sets his room on fire. So anyway, she escapes, and in running away, she runs into Zeke and Woodrow, and they, she just starts following them because they're running away because the preacher tried to rape Zeke, and so they're on the run, and these three strange creatures take up together, and it's the adventures of their being together, and eventually, even the least of these really says it all. That no, I guess nobody is too diminutive to be to count and do something wonderful.
So these three people become friends, and they're escaping the born again preacher.
Yes. And then it turns into a lynching.
Throughout the book, are they on the run throughout the book?
Pretty much, yes. They are mainly on the run from the deacon. The preacher gets very burned in this fire, but he survives, and he comes back into the picture again. From the very beginning, there's an escape from something.
And so Lizbeth, she carries her little Susie, her little stuffed monkey, under her arm.
Yes. Susie is her friend, and
these guys show compassion for her, and they try to protect her.
Well, after a while, when she first appears to them, they are scared to death because they don't know who's with her, and so they try to escape her, and she just keeps following and following and following until finally they start taking care.
And they try to help her. Is there a lesson in this book?
I'm fighting against rigidity. You know, people that believe so strongly in stuff that they are cruel to people that don't believe the way they believe. I mean, and they, you know, it's like they're guided by God to be this way, and it's repulsive to me.
Yeah, they're ordained to lead the masses forward.
Yeah.
Are you going to keep writing?
Well, I've written my memoir is coming out pretty soon, called An Unruly Imagination. And then I've written about another book that they're in the process of publishing called The Fairy, the Stallion, and the Redneck. And so I've got two more coming out.
Great. Lane Bradbury, author of Even the Least of These. Thanks so much for talking with me.
Thank you so much.
We hope you enjoyed this edition of the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. We hope to see you back here every Saturday night at 8 o'clock, or listen to our podcast anytime on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, just to name a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first.